start.
I don't know if I'm going to fail or succeed, but I'm going to try my hardest to succeed.
They have big dreams.
I want to go to Job Corps, maybe go to college, get me a nice job.
But those high hopes crash against hard reality.
Ooh, it's freezing out here. This is how they kick me out the door, no code or nothing.
Will they grab that second chance?
When I first got out, I felt kind of strange because I'm so used to standing by my door in my cell waiting for them to open the door.
Or will they be scared away?
Going back out there, it's a lot of things I'm afraid.
We'll see their hard-won success.
My first check, when I got it, I was like, whoa, it felt good. I worked for that,
And their pain.
There was a couple times I felt like I wanted to kill myself.
Come with them as they try to turn their lives around.
Wake up 6 o'clock, go to real jobs. Yeah, I guess that's what I am now. I am an ordinary person now.
Mike Taibbi asks, are they ready to turn hard time into straight time? From our studios in New York, here is Stone Phillips.
Good evening. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone deserves a second chance. You'd want one. And as a society, we give second, even third chances to those who have made wrong turns in their lives. Tonight, 4 people who made some very wrong turns, who did things you may find disturbing, are given an opportunity to start fresh, to break away from their criminal past and build a law-abiding future. It's something of a gamble, as you'll see, but we all have a stake in their success because we all pay if they fail. Here's Mike Taibbi.
I've been arrested for drug sales, possession of drugs, burglary, robbery.
They've worked hard to get here in their way.
Possession of 10 ounces of cocaine.
1 burglary charge, robbery, assault. I was stealing and I was making $1,000 a day to support my angel dust habit.
And now they're going to get out, each with a release date that's just around the corner.
I don't know if I'm going to fail or succeed, but I'm going to try my hardest to succeed.
Each seems anxious to turn his life around.
I had enough of this. I really broke down now. This is it. I want to just go out and live a decent life.
I want to go to Job Corps, maybe go to college, get me a nice job. I got a lot of plans. Bend over, please.
But for all their stated intentions that sound so sincere, even heartfelt, virtually every state in the country has examples of the worst that can happen. Career criminals on parole committing some vicious new crime. Such cases and the publicity they generate raise the questions. Are we letting criminals out of prison too early? What are their chances of succeeding on the outside when they do leave? For if they succeed, that means they're not hurting anybody. And what are the factors that determine success or failure?
To find out, last winter Dateline began tracking the paths of 4 men leaving prison and heading for parole. After all, 80% of those leaving prison face a period of parole or some form of post-release supervision. There are 2 reasons. First, to protect the community by keeping an eye on people with criminal pasts and perhaps criminal futures. And second, to help those people find a different, crime-free future in the world outside the prison walls.
We followed our 4 parolees over a period of some 8 months, and we were surprised by who stayed straight and who didn't and why. Theirs is a story of men trying to do the hardest thing in the world, to change.
I'm happy I'm finally getting out.
21-year-old Jamel McCree has spent his last 3 birthdays behind bars for beating someone badly.
I just had a fight with another juvenile.
They knocked him unconscious.
That's life.
In fact, this 9th grade dropout, whose mother worked 2 jobs to support the family, boasts a long resume which includes robbery, drug dealing, and mugging. Once he'd wanted to be a rapper or poet or professional boxer. But crime, and often violent crime, won him over.
You chose another way to make money, right? You robbed people.
That's because I liked it that at the time. I felt that I was earning that money because I felt that I'm making the person give it to me.
Jamel, the youngest parolee we would follow, is ecstatic at being released 10 weeks early. He'd been denied parole the previous year, in part because of his extensive criminal record. But this time, one official told us, the thinking was, here's a young kid who served nearly all his sentence, and, given his record, Even a short period of parole supervision would be better than none at all in those first months back in society. And he's young enough. He might not be lost forever. As Jamel leaves prison, he carries everything he owns in a bag, plus the $52.49 he earned while incarcerated.
No way to the bus stop was.
But whatever his dreams were when he imagined this day, they take a back seat the instant he steps beyond the prison walls. There are practical matters to consider.
How do we get out of here? Now I'm lost.
They pointed him in the right direction, but in his excitement, he either didn't hear it or didn't get it. And now he really is lost, uncertain where to catch the bus heading in the direction of the parole office, a responsibility of all new parolees.
Ooh.
And he's cold.
Hello, man.
It's January 13th, the first day of the new year that really feels like winter, the wind chill pushing the temperatures down to the low 20s. Jamel has no coat. If he'd asked, he surely would have gotten one, but he didn't, and none was offered.
They don't even get your coat. Got you out here in the freezing cold. No coat. Just an undershirt and a light little shirt on.
Ooh. Full of hope and bluster only minutes ago, the young ex-con is now edgy and beginning to lose heart.
This sucks.
The first 48 hours are critical. The parolee might not erupt in the first 48 hours, but a formulation of how the system feels about him and how society feels about him will be gilded in the parolee's mind.
Mario Paparosi spent years on New Jersey streets as a parole officer and was once the state's assistant commissioner of corrections. Now he teaches law and justice and warns that for the average parolee, it's a struggle to stay on the right path, that the slightest thing can throw him off and make him a threat once again.
Screw me, I'll screw you back.
We don't think like that. A criminal thinks like that.
A criminal like 27-year-old Dante Brooks. This is his third prison bid. The last time this dyslexic ninth-grade dropout was out of jail, he got a job, lost it, and quickly returned to what he knew best, selling drugs. Now he's about to get out again after serving another 2 years in New York on another drug conviction and taking some vocational and drug counseling on the inside.
You said during the second bid, never again. But you went back in again.
You're right.
So why believe you now after the third one?
Yeah, I really want to do the right thing out here, you know.
This is it.
I hope so. Don't come back.
In his best days on the streets, Dante says he made $3,500 a day selling crack and earned himself the nickname Mr. Biggs. But to make it in the straight world, he says he knows his paydays will be considerably more modest and that that's okay.
That's it. Thank you. Good feeling here, man. You don't know.
Once outside the prison, he waits nervously for his wife Alicia to show.
I want to do good this time. I'm not going to sell no more drugs. Put all my time into my kids and my wife. I'm going to work this time. No more hanging out with the fellas.
Finally, Alicia arrives. It's a reunion tempered by the fact that she's been through this twice before. And now there's an additional strain. They won't be living together. Because Dante must serve his parole in the same state that convicted him, he'll room with relatives here in New York. Alicia will continue to live with the couple's 2 sons where she's always lived, in New Jersey. She says she and the boys will visit Dante on weekends.
I know it's not going to be easy. I know it's not.
Dante knows the routine. Before anything else, he reports to the parole office, leaving Alicia to wait in the car.
Mr. Brooks, I'm parole officer Delasio. I'm going to be your parole officer.
Dante is now one of 60 parolees this one officer is monitoring. His parole period, 1 year. They'll initially meet once a week, anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour, depending on the need. Eventually, they'll meet every other week. Officer Delasio also reminds him there'll be some surprise visits to the home.
No alcohol beverages at any time. They put you on a curfew at 9 o'clock at night.
When he get locked up, at first I'll be there for him, then me and him will start getting into arguing.
So it shouldn't be that hard. He'll be able to handle it.
I don't know, maybe he did change. But he know he got a lot of proving to do to me.
Now it's back to Dante's temporary home where relatives are waiting, including his 6-year-old son, Dante Jr. Little Dante has Down syndrome and does not speak. But though he's seen his father only intermittently over the years, he won't leave his side. Unlike former drug dealer Dante, the young New Jersey parolee Jamel is met by no one. Not his mother, who lives in New York, or his father, who lives in Texas. He, too, must serve out his parole in the state where he was convicted, New Jersey. And getting to his mandatory parole meeting now is not easy. It's bone-clattering cold. And remember, he's got no coat. With no bus in sight, he cusses under his breath and hails a cab.
I'll give you 15.
But the cabbie won't bargain, and Jamel grudgingly agrees to the fare to get to his parole office, 28 bucks. 35 minutes out of prison and his meager bankroll, all the money he has or has access to in the world, is cut in half. Remember, because Jamel wasn't paroled until late in his sentence, he'll have a short parole, 10 weeks. All he's got to do is cooperate and stay straight for those 10 weeks, and bingo, total freedom, no more prison bars. Sounds simple, but is it?
First off, on your right. You know you're not an angel. You've been arrested 18 times.
Look at the complaints, though. They minor offenses, though.
As his parole officer reviews his record, Jamel plays down each charge.
Robbery.
I could take a hat off your head and they're going to class it as own.
What's your crime? You got a burglary charge?
I broke inside a school that was closed down for years. Started drinking with my boys and got caught inside there.
The only thing that's worrying me right now, Mr. McCree, is do you realize these are crimes?
Back in prison, Jamel had declined a behavior modification program and now tells Officer Russo he doesn't need the mental health counseling ordered by parole either. What he needs, the young parolee says, is a job.
I do want to work. There's a few places I want to send you for that already.
Russo warns Jamel he'll be checking up on him over the next couple of days. With 9 years on the job, the parole officer thinks he knows Jamel's type, a fast-talking get-over. But he's determined to try and turn the kid around. And if he does, it's a good deal for everybody. After all, supervising a parolee like Jamel costs the taxpayer about $2,200 a year, while keeping him in jail costs 10 times that amount.
Today is the day you got to make a decision. I'm going to make it through parole or I'm going to fail. You decide.
He said he changed. That's good. I hope he did change, you know. And if he did change, I'd be surprised, bro.
Arsenio Abaresco is one of Jamel's old cellmates and is himself just days away from being paroled. He's a kind of professor of convict failure, having watched hundreds of prisoners, including himself, go in and go out and go back in again. Now 33, Arsenio's done 4 prison stretches for drug and robbery convictions, 15 years behind bars, nearly half his life. He predicts Jamel will be back inside within the month.
We prayed before he left. We prayed, and I told him, if you don't change, you're going to get killed, or you're going to kill somebody, you're going to come in here for life.
Arsenio's worried about Jamel. Jamel says he's worried about Arsenio. And anybody on the outside should be worried about all 4 of our ex-cons. Among us, once again, how will they do?
Dateline is sponsored in part by
Parole. One is already having problems adjusting to freedom. They're about to be joined on the streets by 2 more newly paroled inmates. One has spent nearly half his life behind bars. The other was deeply troubled long before he ever committed a crime. Once again, Mike Tybee.
Man, it's freezing out here. All I got is a shirt on, man.
Young parolee Jamel McCree has been free for 7 hours, but it's not total freedom. He can't visit his mother in New York because his parole status restricts him to New Jersey, where he committed his last crime.
Oh, sweet.
Now he awaits friends from the old days who promised to bring him a coat.
What's up, my arm? What's up, baby? Oh, my God. What's up,
Someone suggests stopping at the liquor store, but Jamel won't bite. With only 10 short weeks to do on parole, he seems determined to make it. Get caught drinking, he tells his buddies, and parole could send him back to prison.
They said I can't drink. They also said I got to be in the house at 9 o'clock.
Not this house, but the home of a family friend who's agreed to house him for the length of his parole.
What's up, man? Where my dogs at?
This is where Jamel had hoped to live, but parole inspectors nixed it when they paid a surprise visit here before Jamel's release and found one of the occupants drunk. If a parolee is going to stay on track, healthy influences in his home setting are a key.
in the final analysis, it is that living arrangement, the people that the parolee lives with and the parolee's community, that will provide the external controls that will help the parolee to walk the straight and narrow.
Y'all been here drinking. I ain't going to be able to do that. I ain't going to mess it up for you, man.
He knows that hanging with his old pals isn't the best idea.
I learned my lesson. Look at you right now. Look at me. What? You ain't in your true state of being. Look at you. You all intoxicated. Look at me. I'm regular. I got high hopes and dreams. I plan to rise above this. You know what I'm saying? I want to be something someday. I do not want to go back to prison.
Neither does former drug dealer Dante Brooks, which is why several days out, he's still spending most of his time in the house.
I can't let my guard down for anybody, you know. I know how easy it is to slip back up and get back into what you were doing.
Dante doesn't even want to take the risk of going outside the house to look for work. Not yet. For now, it's enough to just be around the relatives he's staying with. And they're so concerned about him, they're even driving him back and forth to parole.
Now being around positive people, you know, it makes me feel good, you know, that people positive want to take out the time to try to help me back out, get myself back together, you know. I just hope I can get me and her and my kids back together like it should be.
A lot of parolees have no one to go home to, like 31-year-old James Fisher, who's been in and out of trouble most of his life. A former angel dust addict, James has been released from prison after serving 14 months for receiving stolen property. He'll be on parole another 10 months.
When I first got out, I felt kind of strange because I'm so used to standing by my door in my cell waiting for them to open the door, to let us out for food or for rec or for a shower.
Because James had no one to take him in, parole placed him here at St. Lucy's, a government-subsidized shelter in New Jersey.
7 o'clock at night, we set the car. And this is where we sleep right here.
The loneliness of institutional living is nothing new for James. As a youngster, he was shuttled constantly among orphanages, foster homes, and group residences for troubled kids. But as confusing as all that must have been, James traces the seeds of his antisocial behavior to the tortured early years he spent with his father.
He was beating on my mom. So I tried to step in, and he took me and literally threw me out the kitchen window. And I was hanging out the kitchen window. When I crawled back in, I grabbed the butcher knife and I chased him out of the house. He didn't come home for 2 weeks. Learning by yourself. It's the hardest thing in life because I really had nobody much really to turn to.
Combating loneliness will be James Fisher's greatest challenge on parole.
I don't blame nobody for what's going on with my life. I blame myself.
Former drug addict Arsenio Abaresco says he earned his 4 separate prison sentences, but like James, his beginnings foreshadowed an awful adulthood. It's remarkable that he has any support from family as he gets out. Arsenio grew up in Puerto Rico, where as a child he loved to fish. But at 14 he moved to New Jersey, and soon after, he says, his stepfather forced him and others in the family to start selling drugs.
When I didn't want to go to school, I saw he did. Here, you take them drugs and you sell them.
Within a year, the boy who'd never even smoked a cigarette was snorting heroin and robbing and mugging to support his habit, a habit that's helped put him behind bars several times. And now he's free again after yet another prison stretch, this one 5.5 years. He awaits his older sister, who says she'll allow him to live with her while he's on parole for the next 14 months.
There's a lot of things I'm afraid. Going out there and get high or go out there and sell drugs or steal or rob people. You know, I don't want to do that.
Finally, Arsenio's sister arrives. She's brought new clothes for him.
Hello. All right.
How are you?
Okay?
You smell like cigarettes.
She would not permit her face to appear on camera.
I don't choose to be in television. This is not something that I'm proud of.
Raised by her grandmother away from the rest of the family, she's led a life quite different from Arsenio's.
She's a good person. If I was not her family, she would not even, you know, want nothing to do with me.
Just as Arsenio views the coming days and weeks as his last chance to make it in the free world, so does his sister.
I'm expecting for the worst, but then I'm hoping that he does the right thing. Okay. Because if he don't do the right thing, I'm going to be the one calling parole. I'm going to be the one, you know, bringing him in. And I will have no doubts about doing that.
Arsenio did receive some drug counseling in prison. But can he do what his sister has clearly demanded? stay off drugs, live by the rules, and find a job and hold on to it? Can young Jamel avoid the temptations of his pals, James, the perils of loneliness, or former drug dealer Dante, the fear of failing once again? Can any of them make it?
Studios in Rockefeller Center. Here again is Stone Phillips.
Returning to our story, it's a struggle to survive outside prison for almost all parolees. Like the ones in our story, most ex-cons have little money or education. In case you're wondering, our 4 parolees roughly reflect the racial breakdown of the prison population. 33% are white, 46% are black, 18% Hispanic. One of the toughest parts of the transition from prison to freedom is finding work. Ex-con isn't exactly a resume builder. Once again, Mike Taibbi.
Going out looking for a job, and once you put on there, have you ever been convicted? Yes. The interview may be going good, this and that, but as soon as they see that, you know, you're not getting a job.
Don't let anybody tell you there's no stigma attached to a prison record anymore. There is. It's real. It's impossible to erase completely. A recent survey estimates that 1 year after release, 2 out of every 3 ex-cons have failed to find work in the regular job market, 15 times the national average. Former drug dealer Dante Brooks had some vocational training in prison, and now he says getting a job is his top priority. At this point, he's been at it 3 weeks.
I know if I go for certain jobs and they turn me down, this and that, will my mind go back to how it used to be? Well, I'm going to go get the money the best way I know how, you know, get back on the streets and start selling drugs again. It came to my mind, but not actually saying I'm going to go out and sell drugs.
An experienced parole officer like Dante's knows that's exactly the way a parolee is going to be thinking. Ideally, her job is to change his thinking.
I would like to see him working. When you're working, you have less time to get in trouble. And also, just the fact that it proves to himself he's self-sufficient. If you do have a tie, grab it.
She tells Dante there's a possible job. The interview's in a couple of days.
Okay. You have to be there at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Not 8:05.
But Dante never shows for the interview because he doesn't have to. It turns out he was serious about working and actually beat his parole officer to the punch, landing a job on his own as a general factory laborer. It's legit. It's full-time. He earns $5.15 an hour, minimum wage.
My first check, I mean, when I got it, I was like, whoa, you know, it was all right. It wasn't, you know, what I would call money, you know, a lot of money, but I mean, it felt good. I worked for that, you know.
Dante heard about the job from another ex-con. In fact, many here have done prison time. Surprisingly, the boss views this as an asset.
Other people are just coming in just to spend a couple hours, make a couple of dollars, and disappear. These people are here to look to create and get a career for themselves and get back online with society.
It's been a lot tougher for Jamel McCree, and he hasn't helped himself much. 8 days out of prison, and he hasn't signed up for a mental health program mandated by parole. And now, the young parolee has no job prospects, and no money.
I don't like walking around, bro. Right now, I don't have $1 to my name. That's bad.
With an air of desperation, Jamel suddenly tries to get us to pay him under the table for his participation in this report. We tell him NBC's policy says we can't, and we won't. But he still tries to get us to solve his problems.
Then you can pull some strings and help me out with that. Getting into job calls.
We cannot and do not pull any strings for Jamel. He doesn't seem to have any to pull for himself. It turns out Jamel's old cellmate, former heroin addict Arsenio Aboresco, has also been thinking about us as one solution to his immediate problems, although in a different way. 2 days on the street with no job and almost no cash, Arsenio says flat out that if his family wasn't there to offer him at least a little help, he would see us and our expensive equipment as targets of opportunity.
I probably would have been waiting for you to turn around so I could take the camera and sell it. And be like, John, let me hold it for you. I would have ran with it. You know, because I could get $500 for it.
Arsenio claims his big problem is that he can't get the necessary documents to get work, like a valid birth certificate from Puerto Rico and a Social Security card. He says he asked for help getting a hold of them while he was in prison, but got nowhere. New Jersey prison officials maintain that Arsenio did not request that kind of help from the prison's Department of Social Services. They say they are not under any legal obligation to provide that help, but that if inmates ask for it, they routinely assist them on this matter. Whatever the case, Mario Paparosi says that when he worked in parole, he met a lot of men like Arsenio who, when coming out of prison, lacked the basic paperwork. But, you know, it's a fairly simple thing.
It's a basic. It's a given. It stacks the deck on the side of you making it as opposed to not making it.
Surprisingly, the lonely parolee with no family to help him, James Fisher, appears to be doing quite well. Though it's 5:30 a.m. and he has a very long day ahead of him, he says he feels terrific.
The good news is that I start working today. I get paid $100 a day.
While James had no classes or vocational training while in prison, he does have a Social Security card. And now, the shelter where he'd gone to live has found him a part-time state job shoveling snow. He's been out of prison for just 6 days.
Good to be back to work. I'm very determined. To stay up out of trouble, I'm willing, to work. I'm going to save, then when I get enough, I'm going to get a furnished room.
It all seems to be coming together quickly for James. When he left prison, there was no one to greet him. No one. And he's felt profoundly alone throughout much of his life. But now, he has found companionship.
Every morning time she does this.
And not just companionship. James says he has fallen in love, he uses those magic words, with another resident of the shelter. Her name is Christine, and James describes her as a former addict who's been clean for 2 weeks and means to stay that way. Best of all, he says, she needs him.
He's just a good person. Overall good person.
I've had a lot of girls that robbed from me, took drugs, had men in my apartment when I came home from work. I've been hurt a lot. And to find somebody like her, down to earth, intelligent, smart, and everything, I like that.
James has a job and a girlfriend. Dante found work on his own and is sticking with it. Can they hold it all together? And what about the former cellmates, Jamel and Arsenio? Neither has found a job, and both are about to find out that things on the outside can turn bad in a hurry.
Choose between going back to their old lives or creating new ones. It's been a fierce struggle for them all, but hardest for the ex-con who had the biggest dreams. College, a good job. But was Jamel McCree ever really prepared to go straight? Once again, Mike Taibbi.
Young parolee Jamel McCree is missing, and his parole officer, Ed Russo, can't find him. Bad sign. Russo says the budget's tight, which means overtime is discouraged. And with 40 other parolees to supervise, he doesn't have much extra time for Jamel.
Trying to give him the benefit and the opportunity to get things straightened out. I'm trying to help him, but he's not letting me help him.
It's true Jamel's had some tough breaks right from the start, leaving prison on that freezing day with no coat, and a couple of cab rides leaving him just about broke. But though he told us that day he was a changed man, he's instead been an uncooperative parolee right from the start. We overheard him scheming to cross state lines to visit someone. That's a parole violation. And though mental health counseling was a condition of his parole,
most important, make sure you do the mental health.
He never did. Another bad sign.
Have you seen him since he's been out?
No, I haven't.
Now, Officer Russo learns that Jamel never stayed a single night at the home parole had approved for him. Bad signs all over the place.
If we don't find him soon, if we're going to issue a warrant for his arrest and try to bring him back into custody.
Russo guessed from the day he met Jamel that there was a chance he could reach this point very quickly.
It was too much of a game for him. I think it was too much of, let me see how far I can push the envelope before they come and get me.
And you knew that from the time you sat down?
With him, yeah, I think I did.
In fact, 40% of all parolees sent back to prison have not committed new crimes, but have merely violated one or more of their conditions of parole, like missing a parole meeting, crossing the state line, or testing positive for illegal drugs. Will former heroin addict Arsenio Aboresco find trouble that way? Within days of his release, he's returned to a New Jersey neighborhood with all too familiar temptations. He once lived a life of drugs and crime here, exactly the kind of place where parole would not want him to be. But Arsenio has come back to visit family, including his mother, whom he hasn't seen in years. It's a bittersweet reunion. And when Arsenio looks past the faces of his loved ones, what he sees is booze, drinking,
It's all making him very uncomfortable.
That's how you get in trouble. That's why I'm mad. If I was drinking, I'd be acting like them.
During dinner, he makes sure our camera sees that it's soda he's drinking. But he tells us the next morning that after we and our camera left, he gave in to temptation.
Everybody drinking, I wanted to drink a beer. That's how it happened. Just like if you be around people selling drugs, you're gonna sell it. If you're around people getting high, you're gonna get high. That's how it be.
But Arsenio is not ready to give up, not ready to concede that a single beer spells doom for him. 2 days later, we see him at a prisoner resource center, hoping for a job lead. But he hits that roadblock again, no proper identification, and his hope here evaporates.
I need the money. I gotta get the money.
The next thing you know, he's trying without success to sell a used cell phone. And 3 days later, we learn he's fallen the whole way back to heroin.
Then I was like, nah, let me get it back. I went back to my old me, who I was before. That's how I feel.
Who were you?
Huh? Who you think I was? A bad person, man. That's what I was.
Somebody who's capable of robbing. Somebody who's capable of doing anything to get a drug.
That's right.
The former drug dealer Dante Brooks also knows it can all go south in a heartbeat. He's been there. But now he's doing his level best to avoid the temptation of easy drug money. He says that for him, being confined to New York is a good thing because it keeps him away from the seductive influences of his home neighborhood in New Jersey. But it's also keeping him away from his wife and 2 sons. And the original plan to have them visit him on weekends is going badly.
Me and my wife haven't really been together. And I met this young lady, and me and her, started getting to know each other. And the wife found out about it.
He's foolish. He always gonna be foolish.
Dante's wife even called us to complain about him and to predict a future for him that sounds much like his past.
All he know is jail, and that's all he ever will know.
I don't think I want to be married no more. I think I want to just be single now.
And what about James, the lonely parolee who has no family, but who had discovered love with another shelter resident, Christine? Well, she quickly went back to using drugs, he says, their love story in danger of crashing. And while he's still getting some part-time work while living at St. Lucy's, he's really white-knuckling it, just barely keeping it together.
There was a couple times I felt like I wanted to kill myself. But my friends talked to me and said it ain't worth it.
He's been engulfed by depression and hopelessness before, and it could be happening again. His wrists tell the story. Harming himself is a real possibility. How many times did you try to kill yourself?
I'd say over 8, 9, maybe 10 times, maybe even more. I got to keep fighting that loneliness.
4 men, James, Dante, Arsenio, and Jamel. 4 men now veering toward a critical crossroads in their post-prison lives. Each must choose between new habits and old ones, between freedom and life on the run.
Next week, a routine for 3 of these young parolees is just too hard. But there's still hope for one, and it might surprise you which one. Why did he succeed? Why did the others fail? Here with the conclusion to our story, Mike Tybee.
It's January 27th, and young parolee Jamil McCree is a wanted man. Parole has issued a warrant for his arrest.
He's considered to me to be dangerous.
Remember, it was only weeks earlier that this 21-year-old with the extensive criminal record left prison talking of bright dreams and vowing to do the right thing.
I want to go to Job Corps, maybe go to college, give me a nice job.
But it fell apart quickly, or it was all smoke, says parole officer Ed Russo. Jamel has blown off just about every condition of his parole with impunity. And given his criminal history, assault and robbery, he's once again considered a risk to society.
He doesn't have a job. He doesn't have maybe money in his pocket. He doesn't have these things. He doesn't have a lot invested in freedom because he doesn't have much to lose.
Neither does Jamel's old cellmate, former heroin addict Arsenio Aboresco. After all of 13 days, and in spite of all his promises and expressed hopes, Arsenio has returnred to heroin.
Instead of going, forwards, I'm going backwards.
His sister found out he was using again and alerted parole, just as she'd warned him she would. and he was ordered moved to this shelter. This is his second night here. Now, instead of Narcotics Anonymous meetings twice a week, parole has ordered him to attend one every day. He's also told that he has to apply to a drug outpatient program, and if it takes weeks to be admitted, he'll have to hang on and hang in with his daily meetings because his drug problem is his problem.
You didn't even want to get high. You just got high because that's what you do.
Yeah.
Like I go and get the chocolate cake.
The shelter director says imprisonment rarely kills an inmate's addiction. It only puts it on the back burner.
I don't think they're prepared when they get out, and with the way funding is, I don't think the justice system can afford to put everybody in a rehab. He's not a bad guy, but I don't